Hey there, students. Welcome to a session with me, Coding with Mr. Dave here. We're going to do a session with regards to memory, and we're going to create something like this over the Raspberry Pi Foundation project. And just to scroll right over here. All right, let's see how this project works on its own. So you can hear and see that whenever you start a game, there will be a simple 3 patterns are playing, and we gotta remember what were said. So I believe it was blue, red, and blue. And immediately there will be additional pattern played, and the thing was 4. And if I'm not mistaken, it was yellow, blue. Oh, I got it wrong. And when I got it wrong, they would ask me to now enter the score and put my name in it. And you'll be able to see that my name is helping store, and I have the high score right at the top. So if generally this will keep repeating, and this will be the game based on sound and based on the memory that we look at the screen and whether we can recognize it as we go. So this is basically this project is, and we're going to try creating something like this, but let's add something that is uniquely ours. And in this project, we simply need to know how to add a sound to a Scratch project, and how to create and use lists to store data, and how to create and use custom blocks for repeating code. What we need is just our computer, whether we have Scratch tree or online, offline versions. And this is just only for teacher stuff. Okay. And first of all, let's try creating a character that can display a random sequence of color. And right now, I'm just going to go open up my new Scratch project. Currently on my Scratch project file, a new one this time, and I'm just going to go ahead and just name this immediately like a Scratch music memory pattern. Okay. Something to make me remember very clearly. And once after we do that, the very first project, I'm just going to tick this because I've really done this and created a online project. If you want to do an offline, it's completely up to you depending on where you are. And this time, I'm just going to create a character sprite and a backdrop. And it suggests that we could use some ballerina character, but if you prefer to use something else, of course, you can do something different. And it doesn't really have to be a person, and they just need to show different colors. So I'm just going to go ahead and choose one sprite that I like and a backdrop that I want to use. Doesn't have to be exactly the same. So right here, I don't really like to use the cat for this example, so I'm just going to remove this. And I just want to go to the Choose a Sprite library right over here. And today I want to do something with dinosaurs. So let's use dinosaur as the one of the costumes or sprite that I want to use. And then backdrop, let's choose. I'm going to use the same thing called dance or spotlight right over here. We use spotlight so that I can put the dinosaur right here in the middle for us. So we basically done this. And this is some information to understand that the game should use a different number to represent each color. So what we have to do right now is to create a character, 4 costumes that have different colors, 1 costume for each of the 4 colors shown above. Make sure that your color costumes are in the same order as the list above. So depending on whatever color that I want to, I'm going to make sure I do so. And let's make the color red, blue, green, yellow easily. So I'm just going to go to costume, and I'm going to do a little bit of red here, just adjust the color. And I'm going to slightly put this darker just to make this side have some kind of shading, and put a bucket tool here. And I'm going to put this shading towards this dinosaur. and the rest should be the same, I believe. Maybe I can put this slightly even darker for the nostril of the dinosaur. And I'm gonna put the red color a little slightly lighter, brighter for the body's color. Something like this. So that represents red. I'm gonna reduplicate this one and follow the second list of color, which is blue. And we can do something like this. All right, gonna use the shading for, oh, that's not exactly blue. So blue color should be somewhat like this, okay? So this will be the lighter shading. And if I pull this towards the middle, I have a darker blue shading. And I can put even darker for the nostril of the dinosaur. Something like that. Slightly different color. Not too different. But at least there's some shadings in between. And let's go with the other dinosaur. And this time, let's follow the color green and yellow. So I can leave the green color because this is something that we could use. And I'm just gonna skip the camp because that's already green. What I need to do right now is to put this in the yellow color. So I'm gonna just adjust this back to somewhat this, and then just give this a little saturation and not too bright. And then with the shading, I'm gonna adjust this a little darker so that that dark will have a dark yellow shading. I think this is too dark for me. So I'm just gonna adjust that a little bit and have some kind of yellow shading this time. All right, something like that. Not too dark, not too the same like the green color. So at least we have 4 different colors right now. So I have red, blue, green, and you can argue that this looks like lime color. I do agree. So let me just make this slightly brighter again so that it's not too greenish. And then adjust this slightly so that I have some kind of yellow shade for the dinosaur. All right, something like that, I believe. Okay. So once I'm done, I can just take this because we're probably done with the colors already. And they say here, if you want, you can use the color or shape tool to fill parts of the costume with different colors. I've actually done that with the bucket tool just now, so I can just skip this. And this is what we have to do after doing this. We're going to add a list for storing the random sequence of colors that the player has to remember. So we're going to create a list called sequence, and only the character sprite needs to see this list. So you can select for this sprite only when you create the list. So this will give us an instruction how we can create and make a list over here. And for here, we can just type the name list, and this will be some info to see how the list will look like when we create a silver. So this can be quite lengthy to look at, but this process is very simple because we just need to create a list called sequence. And I do so very easily by going to the code section, variable right over here. Rather than making a variable, we're making a list. And we're going to type sequence because the project requires us to create a list called sequence and make this only for this sprite only. And what we can do is select for this sprite only, and we have a list right over here created for us. So once we create, we can actually manually create a list on our own over this one, but we can also hide the list right here on the left side of the scratch so that we can remove and hide it so that this doesn't appear into the main program that we have. But for now, we are doing some testing and the program hasn't even really started. So we can go ahead and show that for the time being. So once that's done, I'm just going to reduce this and then select click because we're basically done. And now it says that we should now see lots of new codes for using lists. The empty list should be visible in the top left hand corner of the stage. So it's right there. And now we can, then each color has a different number. So you can choose a random color by randomly choosing a number and adding it to the list. So we can add this code to the character sprite to choose random number and add it to the sequence list. Pretty simple. Let's put this to code with green flag click, add pick random 1 to 4 to sequence. So let's go on to events, drag them when the green flag is clicked. And once that's there, I'm gonna go to variables because we're gonna add random numbers into the list of sequence here. And that will be operators. And we can do 1 to 4 random stuff. And when we click the green flag, you can see that random numbers will be added into the list right over there. Okay, some of these empty lists was there because I created just now. Whenever we click green flag, there'll be random numbers added into that as well. So once they're done, I can tick this, and you can do so if you've done that as well. You can test the code and check that each time when you click the flag, a random number between 1 and 4 gets added to the list. So you can click that as well. And finally, can you code to add to your program to generate 5 random numbers at once? Now you can actually take a hint, and it says that you can add and delete all of sequence to first delete all of the items on the list and then add a repeat block to add 5 numbers to the list. And that's basically delete everything when the green flag is clicked, and then this one is added with repeat number 5. Pretty straightforward. We can first of all want to remove and clear all of these lists because it's best to have a new list whenever the program starts. So let's put this at the top, delete all of sequence. That basically refreshes new list of things whenever we click the green flag. And now we can now add this repeat and do it repeat 5. So we can randomly generate 5 numbers for us here. All right, that's pretty much whenever we click the green flag, there will be always new 5 numbers generated with this block of code. It's pretty much simple, and we can just tick that because we're done. Now, each time a number gets added to the list, the character should change its costume so that the costume color matches the number. Put these blocks into our code so that immediately we can know where the random number is added to sequence. So we can use this and add it towards the random number. So it's basically is like that. We can just go to switch costumes, put it right over here, and then we should add it to the item. Switch the item to the length of the list. So that means each of the costumes will now switch to the item length of our costumes. And we can simply see that when we do that, the costume actually do change, but it's so fast that you can't see with the human eye. And now we can use the weight control right over here so that we can see it at a much slower pace. So now the costumes are now generated according to its number, and now we have created like this kind of random numbers patterns right over there. And that's pretty much it for this section. And now we can try adding sounds towards the extension. So here Add sound. You can test your project a few times. Do you notice that sometimes the same number is chosen twice or more in a row, which makes the sequence harder to memorize? Yes, we do, because whenever we press the green flag, sometimes some number appears together, like for example, 222. All right, so it's quite difficult because in the human eye, we can see that the random number is generated, but the costumes stay the same. And we don't know whether the computer actually records this down. So henceforth, we can add a music extension to make it something different for this memory game. So we can add the music extension pretty much easy. And this section just only shows you how you can apply that extension right at the bottom left of the screen. And when you click that, this music instruments will open and you will have a new music block add-on, place it inside to the Scratch library. Once that's done, you can go ahead and just reduce this and then select done because you are completed with this section. And let's do the code that is very similar to the code that changes the character costume. And this is actually very easy, where we can just add in one of the blocks that we need, which is this play drum, and this based on the length of the sequence of our number by adding this block inside and in between the costume. And that's basically just grab this and then for easy sake, I'm just going to duplicate this one, place this inside. When you're able to do something like this, when the drum is added, you can immediately hear that there is a random drum sound whenever you play the green flag. All right, so at each random sequences, you are now able to hear that the drum is now beating to like 25, a quarter of the beats for you. And this generates different sounds for your player to distinguish that costume or change. So for example, this round, that costume has no repeats, so let's run it again and see whether we get a repeated costume. Okay, so the costume before is repeated twice, so the sound actually can act like distinguish that your sound played and let your player knows that yellow is repeated twice into the program itself. So sounds actually make the game much more interesting when it comes to this. All right, once we're done, we're basically done the most basic part of the project. And this is where most of the project, most of you may need to do this in the new project that you have here. So right here, we're going to repeat the sequence, and we're going to add 4 buttons the players has to repeat the color sequence. So here we can add new 4 sprites to our projects to represent the buttons. So we can add the new sprite costume so there's 1 sprite in each of the 4 colors, and put the sprites in the same order on the stage as the costume: red, blue, green, and yellow. So what I'm going to do is going to put these drums into the bottom, and I'm going to try to match the color as much as I can. And I'm going to go to sprite here, just put in a drum, and here we go. We have the red color. And let's go to costume for now. We can see that the colors right there. If I want to match them exactly to the color, I can just go and use this color picker tool. And I don't think I can actually pick the color right over there. So this is quite tough. So I'm going to do this roughly. So I'm going to program this with red, blue, green, and yellow. So this one should be fine. I can't just keep this, and I'm just gonna go duplicate this one and just gonna make blue, green, and then yellow there. So simply using the first costume, and I want to change this to blue, something of this color, I believe. Then I change the colors like this. All right, that looks a little blue in the screen, so that's pretty much okay for me. All right, and I'm going to duplicate this one, and this time I'm going to put it right here. And the second one was green color, and the last one is yellow. So let's change this to maybe green, and then let's do that. All right, so this is slightly white, if I'm not mistaken. So everything right here is green, and I'm gonna go ahead and delete some of these extra red costumes because I don't really want to use that. And this are the same thing too. I'm gonna just remove this. And I'm gonna duplicate the last one right here and fill this with the color yellow. Yellow is always tricky for me because it's very similar to green, because they are the same color range. And now we have 4 different drums with different colors. So basically, that's the step that we could do. And now we can head back. Now let's head back to the instruction and let's take a look and see here. They asked us to add the code to the red sprite so that when the sprite is clicked, it broadcasts a red message to the character sprite. So we can use some broadcasting message like do this and then we'll send another message for this. So I'm going to select this red color sprite and I'm going to use this event right there. So when this sprite click, it will broadcast a red message. Okay. And then this will be used for this one. And then once I'm done, I'm just going to tick this for now. And then it says that a broadcast is like a message announced over a loudspeaker, which you can, for example, hear in schools or supermarkets. All the sprites can hear the broadcast, but only the sprite whose job it is to respond will do something. So we're going to add similar code to the blue, green, and yellow sprites to make them broadcast messages with their own color. So that's pretty much straightforward. That means copy all of these to all of the drums. So I'm just going to drag it here, drag to green, I'm going to drag to yellow, and you will be able to see that blue, green, and yellow has the same code, and we just need to change to message distinguishably to its own color. So blue will be blue, and then green will be green, and then yellow will be yellow. Straightforward. Okay. So we put each of these into the middle. You'll be able to see that red, blue, green, and yellow, each of the distinguished scratch project will now have its own broadcast message. Now we're done with this. Now, do you remember that the broadcast is like a loudspeaker? Okay, we do. And then you will add code to make it the character sprite's job to respond to the broadcast message. So it asks us to go back to our character sprite. So when your character sprite receives a message from red, the code should check whether the number 1 is at the start of the sequence, which means that red is the next color in the sequence. If 1 is at the start of the list, the code should remove the number from the list because the player remembered the correct color. Otherwise, it's game over and the code needs to stop all to end the game. This basically means that if this random generator, okay, let's randomize this to 1. Okay, so we have one list here. So which means if red color is equals to 1, it will then remove that towards the list. And if it's not 1, the game will automatically goes to game over. So we can go back to a first character sprite. We're going to put this code somewhere here. And I'm just going to follow exactly what we have. So when we receive red, okay, so we can do so by just putting this when I receive red, and we have the if then else block right there. So let's go to control, if then else block, and we're going to use the operators right here, and that's will be the equal sign, because we need to make sure if the item of number 1 sequence is equals to 1, then we will delete that from the list so that we can continue playing the game. So we can simply go back to blocks, to variable, and we're gonna use this item 1 of sequence in there. For some reason that has a drop down menu, we don't have that, so we can just place it inside here. And we can just make sure that this is item 1 of sequence equals to 1. And then we will delete the item of 1 inside the sequence list. So what's going on is there, if the number of the list is number 1, it will remove. If it's wrong, then it will automatically go to game over for the game. So let's take the game over right there, and let's use like say game over for 1 second. I'm going to leave it for 2 seconds for now so that we have something different, and then we have the control to stop the game. All right, so which means if this is 1, all right, it will remove the list because this was the pattern that was generated. And once I remove all of the 1s in there, and in logic, we should be able to click yellow so that we should follow that number list. But since right now it's 4, it will stop the game and it will game over. So this particular program help us to help ask the player to recognize which pattern of the list of number has been generated. If they got it correctly, it will remove the number from the list itself. If it selected the wrong number, they will then have received a game over. And this is pretty much quite easy, and we're going to reduplicate all of these things to blue, green, yellow. And I'm going to simply just duplicate this one and do that with blue, because blue this time is number 2. All right, and I believe that we can just follow exactly what we have. All right, so okay, let me just follow this one in between, and when we're done with that, all right, so we're kind of get the hang of the logic of the game, but let's create like a sound for the code for our drums so that it actually matches to the sound that we have. So let's reuse this one here, because this was the drum, the sound that we have here. So let's use a different sound for the drums itself. So number 1 will be number 1 for the drum. Okay. Very lucky to have 1s in between. So let's test this. So whenever you click red, all right, that's the correct sound for this particular drum. All right, with that, we're done with the drum sound. And now we can duplicate the code we use for the character to respond to the message red. And now we can duplicate it for message blue. So when we do this, we can duplicate this one and we can go ahead and change that to blue. This one remains the same because we're going to delete only one item, but we are going to delete only one item if the number is 2, and then the rest should be the same. But this one, of course, the drum number should go to the second one because this will relate to the sound pattern of number 2. So when that's done, we can just click this and we can duplicate this off for the green and yellow buttons and change the necessary parts so that the character responds correctly to the new broadcast. So let's do this. Let's duplicate this one to maybe green this time, and this time should be 3. This will be side stick number 3, and where should be the same. And then here, yellow will be 4, and this should change to the cross symbol of 4 to the sound. And let's test this. All right, so we have 4, 2, 1, 3, 2. So let's click 4 and see whether only one item is being removed. And then let's see. All right, that item is being removed because that one item, the first item right there, is number 4. That means the first item of this list is equals to number 4. It's going to remove one of it out. All right, that's 4. We need to make sure that this is always 1. And now this first item is now number 2. We can click the blue, that's remove, and then remove 1 because I clicked 3, now 3, and then this is 2. All right, I hope this is quite simple, and the code right over here will always check the first item of the list towards its number. And with that, we're basically done with this, and we also test as well. I can't memorize it because I show you the list is now, and this time the sequence is different. And when the player repeats the whole color sequence correctly, the sequence list is empty and the player wins. If you want, you can also display some flashing light as a reward once the sequence list is empty. You'll do that in your own time. And let's add this code to our end of a character when a flag is clicked. Let's do that. Wait until the length of sequence is equal to 0, broadcast 1. So let's do this to the main program of the sequence list. So let's do here. Let's, for example, repeated this 5 already 5 times, and we can do the control events here. Wait until, which is this one. Operators here, which is the length of sequence. All right, put this in here, and then length of sequence was in variables. We can add this further here is equals to 0 because everything is empty inside the list, and we can broadcast an event called win, and we should have a message win. Once that added, we will then switch to the stage to import the drum machine. So after doing that, we shouldn't, I just realized that it's not this broadcast win that we should use. We should use broadcast win and wait first. Okay, that's over there. And we're going to switch to the stage and import the drum machine sound or any other sound that we like. We're just going to go to the stage area. I'm going to go sound, and I'm going to remove the pop one. And I just want to follow because it's much more straightforward. We can use the drum machine sound, which is this. If you don't like it, you can change to anything that you want to. And now we can, if you take a look at these instructions, you can see that this is how you can add the sound right over there. And I'm going to add this code to play the sound when they receive 1, and I am able to change the graphics effects of the backdrop. So this will be the instruction for the backdrops over here to the code. So here, when we receive win, all right, over the stage, okay, and then different spelling, so it's win or 1. Let me just change that. Maybe I can't change it anymore. So just regards that win is the message, straightforward. So we can start the sound machine, which is this one, and we can repeat this 50 times to change the color effects of our backdrop to make it like there's a disco, and we can add to change color effects to look, or I can just change color effect by 25, and we're going to use the event, the control block to make this 0.1 seconds. This would change the color pretty fast, and then we can clear the graphic effects once after it's done. So we can do that, and here we go. So let's test the game. 4 4 2 3 4 is 4 4 2 3 and 4. All right, we are able to create a first level kind of design, and that's basically allowed us to create the repeat sequence pretty much easy. Now, this challenge will be creating multiple levels. Now, multiple levels, so far the player only has to remember a sequence of 5 colors, which is quite easy. But let's do by creating something like by improving the game by adding a score and adding it so that the players can gain a score, and then the game moves to the next level and the color sequence will be much more difficult and longer to remember. And this time let's create a variable to store something, which is the score. And if you go through this will be all of the sprite, because this will be a whole entire program for us to store how the player gains. So basically, let's go over to variables and let's create that over in the character sprite. We're going to go to variables here, make it, then I'm going to type in score and select also sprite, and this will be shown over here on the score menu. Know that you can hide this whenever you finish testing or you want to display this on the menu, but score is always something that we want to display in the game, so you shouldn't hide this, just letting you know that you can do so. And for that, I'm going to just close this because we created the score variable pretty much simple, and then we add this. Now, based on the score, the game will decide the length of the color sequence, and we can start with a score and a sequence length of 3. We can add a block at the start of our characters. When the green flag is clicked, the code will set the score to 3. So this one is pretty much straightforward. We can actually just put this one here and set the score to 3, because whenever we click the green flag, the score was now set to 3 for us. Once that's done, we can just click that. And instead of always creating a sequence of 5 colors, now we want to create that based on the score to determine the length. Okay, so that means it will be, when the score is set in the initial 3, that means the character loop will now the number generation will depending on the number that you have in the score itself. Now, so that means that the first level we have 3 because we set that to 3, and there will be 3 patterns of sound. We can add the score inside the repeat loop and put it right there. So instead of repeating 5 times, we will be able to repeat this 3 times based on the score that the person has. So when you see that, the score literally just only repeated 3 times the sound and the pattern, because we follow to the initial number that we set over to score, making it the first level. And we're basically done with this. And if the player repeats the correct sequence, and then they will add 1 score towards it, and doing so, it increases the length of the next sequence and add the following block to the character's code at the point you know the sequence is correct. So the change score by 1 is pretty straightforward, And we can also do something with the broadcast win right over here. And we can basically just change the score to the bottom of this broadcast, because when the person is 1, we can change the score variable by 1. And that basically is like something this. So when we test this level, so 142. Person will now gain a score, and it should then play the whole entire game again. And to do so, we can add a forever loop to make it go forever. Like whenever a number increases, this whole thing will start again. So I'm going to use the forever block and place this over here. So what's going to happen is that whenever I play this, 1, 3, 4. It will now go to the next level on an automatically length, and it will just go on until the player loses or stops the game eventually. All right. And once you're done, get people to test your game, because we're basically done with this, and I'm just going to tick that. And remember to hide the sequence list before they play it. So I think basically we are done with the entire game on its most basic form. And we can go ahead and just go onto the variables and just hide the sequence, and that should be plenty much it for people to just look at. And now we can improve by adding this high score so that we can play against our friends. We can add in 2 new variables called high score and name to the project. Simply go on to variables and add in high score. And of course, let's put this in all sprite, and then we put a person's name here as well. All right, so when the game ends because the players get the sequence wrong, the game should check whether the score is higher than the current high score. If it is, the game should have the score as the high score and also store the name of the player. Add code to your character sprite to store the high score. Also ask for the player's name and store it into the name variable. And that's basically it. I showed you how you can create the high score variable, but this time, so basically we can keep all these programs into if score more than high score right over here in the game over message. This is one of these right over here. So we can add this in if then right over here. Oh, I don't want to put this right there. So if then the score is more than high score. So let's put here, score is more than a high score. Oh, this is not equal, this is more than. And we put here, if the score is more than a high score, then we will set the high score to score, which is this, set the high score to the score value. And then as high score, what is your name? So here as new high score, I'm just gonna add some new name here. And then what's your name? And here we're gonna set name to answer. So here variable set to name, and then set the name to the answer based on the sensing block here, because this was the answer that we had. All right, that's basically done to one of our characters here on the red button. And we need to add of these to other 3 scores. So here I will duplicate this one and put it in all the game over section of this area. And here as well. Let's duplicate this, put it right here, and also this one too, and put it right here as well. Okay, so we all have the score being stored if they have something new. This one's something extra, so let's remove that. So in basic form, just showing you guys here that we do have all of these being set correctly. Now, it says if you need to change any of the game over code, for example, to add sound or change the game over message, you have to change it 4 times. And sometimes we don't have to do that. And we can actually create this in another block called click on my blocks and then make them a block for game over. So basically, it's going to show us another stuff. And I'm going to just go ahead and select and click my block here and call this a game over block. And I'm guessing that because they asked us to put all these in together, and we can actually simplify this whole entire code and put it right there for us. So meaning this whole entire thing that we have, we can just group them up into one block over here, say game over, and we can just remove everything and just replace it, because I'm done with this, replace all of these to a simple game over code. So instead of these overcomplicating codes right there, because these have been replaced to that, and we can just remove all of these because this is actually the game over block that we can have. And finally, this will be something much more easier rather than putting such a big code in between, replacing that with just a simple subroutine block or my block, and we're basically done with that. Now, test your new block by playing the game and clicking the red button at the wrong point in the color sequence. Let's test. So the first one was red, so I'm going to purposely click wrong, game over, and because the high score wasn't 3, so high score was 4, I had to make sure I surpass the high score first, and only it will give me a name. All right, but the game over actually works. So let's purposely get this correctly. Red, red, green. Blue, red, green, red. Blue, red, green, red. All right, this time I have 5. Let's purposely get this wrong. And now it will then store my name and the score. And the high score right now belongs to me, David. And this will be how the game will store. And this block replaces this whole thing to make it more easy and simplified. All right, that's pretty much it. And now your new game over block is a function, a little script that you can use anywhere you like in your code by adding game over block to it. Also replace the code in the else block connected to the broadcast for the other colors of your new game over block. Here's what a code block should look like. So we basically do and done all of these. And we can also add in any sound if we want to make sure we create a wrong one. So this is an example of a cost sound if someone get a wrong answer, and if they got the new high score, they have a new high score sound. So basically I can, instead of putting the same block into 4 different places, I can put it in this my block here, simplify things. So in this character, we can just go in and let's get a game over sound, and let's follow the cough sound. I'm gonna use this one instead, and I'm gonna put this cough sound over here, as the wrong sound of the game over one. And then a new high score sound, we're going to add something new like yay or win sound. So it's not exactly the same as what we have here, but because new high score, I want things to be much more exciting, and I can just put the win sound right over here before the setting high score. So let's test this. And get this incorrectly. You can see that once I got it wrong, you have the sound effect of getting it wrong. All right, pretty much, yeah. All right, so this part will be some challenge to all of you. And if you want to make more blocks, and you can try to look at, do you see any other code that is the same for all 4 buttons? I could say that some of these here are the same, some play drums and some of these item lists. And we can make another custom block to make all the buttons that could use to simplify it. Or maybe you can create another costume. Can you see that your game starts with a character showing one of the 4 colors, and that the character always displays the last color in the sequence while the player is repeating the color sequence? Can you add a plain white costume to the character and add code so that the character displays this costume at the start of the game and while the player is repeating the sequence? All right, difficulty level. Can you allow your player to choose between the game in easy mode using just the red and blue colors, and normal mode chooses all 4 colors? If you want, you can even add hard mode, which makes the use of fifth drum. This is optional for all of you, and that's about it for this project. And I hope this video helps you guys, and pretty much this is how you can create your first memory game using sequence to remember your patterns or the list of items inside. All right, be sure to save this whenever you complete, save to your computer, or if you're online, you share this in a link for me and upload this into your assignment as project. With that, thank you so much, and I hope this long video helped go through the project on your own. Good luck.